अधिकांश पत्रिकाएं अल्पजीवी होती हैं, थोड़े बरस चलती हैं फिर गड़बड़ा जाती हैं। ये पत्रिका भी बीच बीच में गड़बड़ाती रही है, लेकिन उसके संस्थापक संपादक श्री नेमीचंद्र जैन का जीवन था कि हर हालत में इधर उधर से सहायता मिले न मिले, जैसे भी हो वो इसको चलाए रखे। और असल में जहां तक हिंदी का संबंध है, हिंदी में तो रंग आलोचना की शुरुआत ही रंगमंच नटरंग से हुई। उसके पहले जो ज्यादातर आलोचना थी वो नाटक के अकादमिक अध्ययन इत्यादि से होती थी, और रंग आलोचना नाम की कोई चीज लगभग नहीं थी। नाटक के अध्ययन को रंगमंच पर केंद्रित करने का जो प्रयत्न है वो तो खैर नेमी जी और सुरेश अवस्थी आदि के व्यक्तिगत प्रयत्नों से भी हुआ, उनके लेखन से भी हुआ, उनके अन्य गतिविधियों से हुआ। पर नटरंग ने इस रंगालोचना की परंपरा को शुरू करने और उसको बनाए रखने की बहुत बड़ी कोशिश की। मैं उसका 50वां अंक देख रहा था। जब उसके 50 वर्ष पूरे हुए तो एक आयोजन था जिसमें शंभु मित्र ने उसका लोकार्पण किया था, और जो अंक था उसमें इन लोगों ने इन लोगों की रचनाएं या इनसे संदर्भित कुछ न कुछ सामग्री थी। गोविंद देशपांडे, प्रतिभा अग्रवाल, रैना, हंगल, नरेश शर्मा, प्रसन्ना, विजया मेहता, राम कुमार, कुमार गंधर्व, कुंवर नारायण, प्रभात गांगुली, असगर वजाहत, भीष्म साहनी, मणि मधुकर, हबीब तनवीर, मनोहर सिंह, उत्तरा बावकर, राजेंद्र नाथ, मोहन महर्षि, बंसी कौल, जहीर, रघुवीर सहाय, सुरेश अवस्थी, कमलेश दत्त त्रिपाठी, महेश आनंद, सुधीश पचौरी, जयदेव तनेजा, मदन सोनी आदि। ये सिर्फ 50वें अंक के रचनाकार थे। नटरंग में जब 50वां अंक निकला था तो नेमी जी ने इस पर कुछ संपादकीय विलाप भी किया था कि 25 वर्ष में भी 50 अंक बमुश्किल निकले हैं। अब हम लोगों की थोड़ा और विलाप करने की जरूरत है, क्योंकि 25 वर्ष बाद 100 अंक भी नहीं निकले पूरे हुए। लेकिन जो भी अंक निकले हैं उनमें 100 नाटक छपे, 90 लगभग 100। थोड़ी तो अतिशयोक्ति अलंकार का प्रयोग मतलब 90 से 100 में क्या फर्क है, थोड़ी तो है। वैसे मेरे पास जो सूची है उसके अनुसार लगभग 90 चलिए। तो 90 जो नाटक छपे हैं वो किन के हैं? विष्णु प्रभाकर, मन्नू भंडारी, सत्यो दुबे, बादल सरकार, बट्रोल ब्रख, मधुर राय, सुरेंद्र वर्मा, गिरीश कर्नाड, मुद्रा राक्षस, मोहित चैटर्जी, मृदुला गर्ग, विपिन कुमार अग्रवाल, ज्ञानेन्द्र पति, विनोद शाही, अलका सरावगी, कृष्ण बलदेव वैद, गीतांजलि श्री, रत्ना मतकरी, मणि मधुकर, शीलाल शुक्ल, लाभ शंकर ठकार, असगर वजाहत, मृणाल पांडे, राजेश जोशी, भुवनेश्वर, श्रीराम वर्मा, नंदकिशोर आचार्य इत्यादि। यानी ऐसा दावा करने में कोई अतिशयोक्ति नहीं है, संख्या के विभ्रम के बावजूद, कि अगर किसी को पिछले 50 वर्ष में हिंदी रंगमंच में क्या होता रहा है, क्या लिखा जाता रहा है, क्या खेला जाता रहा है, क्या सोचा जाता रहा है, इस पर किसी एक स्रोत की तलाश करनी हो तो वो नटरंग होगा। इसके बिना इस पिछले 50 वर्ष के रंगमंच का लेखा जोखा भी नहीं लिया जा सकता, उसकी शोध भी नहीं की जा सकती, उसका अध्ययन और अन्वेषण भी नहीं किया जा सकता। नटरंग हालांकि हिंदी में निकलता रहा है, उसकी पकड़ में, उसकी पहुंच में एक सदा जागरूक अखिल भारतीयता रही है। वो ये भी बताता रहा है हिंदी के रंग प्रेमियों और पाठकों को कि हिंदी तर दुनिया में क्या हो रहा है, मराठी में, गुजराती में, मलयालम में, बांग्ला में, मणिपुरी में, इत्यादि इत्यादि। ये जो अखिल भारतीयता है वो उसमें हमेशा रही है। कोई भी अंक आप देखें, विशेषांक भी निकाले हैं जिसमें, जैसे गुजराती रंगमंच पर ही एक विशेषांक हाल में हम लोगों ने निकाला था। और दूसरा, चूंकि रंगमंच एक समावेशी कला है जिसमें अन्य कलाओं की भी बड़ी भूमिका होती है, योगदान होता है, तो उसका अंतरानुशासनिक जो चरित्र है वो भी बार बार उस पर इसरार होता रहा है। तभी न कुमार गंधर्व या नरेंद्र शर्मा इस तरह के लोग जो दूसरी विधाओं के हैं, राम कुमार, वो इसमें लिखने। ये तो खैर आपको बाद में पता चलेगा जब हम नटरंग को ऑनलाइन रखेंगे, लेकिन अभी ये थोड़ी देर पहले ये पता चला कि नटरंग के अभी तक के अंकों में 50 लाख शब्द छपे हैं, 1000 उसके लेखक हैं। और क्या एक फिगर था, 2000 की करीब लेख या टिप्पणियां हैं। तो ये सोचने की बात है कि अब तो 25 बरस से उसको नेवी जी द्वारा स्थापित नटरंग प्रतिष्ठान से प्रकाशन होने लगा उसका, वरना पहले तो वो बिना किसी संस्थागत सहायता के, बिना किसी संस्थागत आधार के, समर्थन के ये पत्रिका निकलती रही है। और इसलिए इसके 50 वर्ष पूरे होने पर हम सब प्रसन्नतापूर्वक, थोड़े थोड़े अभिमान के साथ भी और बहुत सारी कृतज्ञता के साथ आप सबका यहाँ आज स्वागत करते हैं। दूसरी बात यह है, दूसरी क्या, हम ऐसे दूसरी कहते रहते हैं, इसका मतलब दूसरी होता नहीं, बहुत ही सातवीं बात, लेकिन कहेंगे दूसरी ताकि भ्रम बना रहे कि बहुत देर नहीं बोल रहे हैं। आज जो आयोजन हम कर रहे हैं वो हमारे बुनियादी सरोकारों को एक नए परिवेश में व्यक्त करने की कोशिश है। बहुत आग्रह नेमी जी का शुरू से था और प्रयत्न भी था कि एक सक्षम, संवेदनशील और परिवर्तन की ओर झुकी हुई रंग भाषा विकसित हो। वो रंग भाषा विचार, चिंतन, विश्लेषण में भी हो और वही रंग भाषा सृजनात्मक अभिव्यक्ति भी पाए। तो इसलिए आज जो हम आयोजन कर रहे हैं उसमें हम 2 पक्षों पर 2 सत्रों में विचार करेंगे। एक, क्रिटिकल वोकैबुलरी फॉर एक्टिंग प्रैक्टिसेस। क्या हमारे पास एक ऐसी संवेदनशील, सूक्ष्म, जटिलता को हिसाब में लेने वाली, ठीक से प्रामाणिक ढंग से बखान करने वाली आलोचनात्मक पदावली है जिसमें हम अभिनय का विश्लेषण, बखान कर सकें? और दूसरा, चेंजिंग थिएटर लैंग्वेज। इस समय बहुत भाषा को लेकर रंग जगत में एक बेचैनी सी भी है। बेचैनी इस बात को लेकर है कि भाषा बदल रही है, इतनी ज्यादा बदल रही है। क्या इस बदली हुई भाषा ने रंगमंच में घुसपैठ कर ली है, या उसने रंगमंच में अपनी जगह बना ली है? क्या रंगमंच में उसकी जगह वही है जो अन्य भाषाई रूपों में है? मसलन साहित्य में भाषा बदल रही है, क्या उतनी ही तेजी से बदल रही है जितनी रंगमंच में बदल रही है? इत्यादि इत्यादि। तो इन प्रश्नों पर लोग विचार करेंगे। माया कृष्ण राव, अंजुम कत्याल, अंजना राजन, आशीष पिल्लई, अभिलाष पिल्लई, माधव बजे, बुद्ध चिंगथम, रविंद्र त्रिपाठी और कीर्ति जैन। मुझे क्या करना था यार करना। हाँ, मैं अब पहले सत्र में जो कि अभिनय के लिए आलोचनात्मक पदावली पर केंद्रित है, अपने वक्ताओं को आमंत्रित करना चाहता हूं। माया कृष्ण राव, अंजुम कत्याल, अंजना राजन। अभिनव पर विचार करने के लिए सिर्फ स्त्रियां ही क्यों, ये प्रश्न मैं अनुत्तरित छोड़ देता हूं। और इसका संचालन करेंगे हमारे मित्र युवा निर्देशक अभिलाष पिल्लई, जो बहुत प्रयोगशील और निडर किस्म के निर्देशक हैं, और उम्मीद है कि उनकी निडरता और बेबाकी बाकी सबको, बाकी भी बहुत बहुत निडर लोग हैं, शायद इसलिए जोड़ रहा हूँ कि शायद कोई लोग होते कहते मुझको आपने निडर क्यों कहा। तो बहरहाल इसके पहले कि हम मैं चाहूंगा कि अभिलाष पिल्लई उनको हमारी ओर से कुछ फूल अर्पित करें। अभिलाष पिल्लई हमारे नटरंग प्रतिष्ठान के न्यासी भी हैं, तो आप ये भी कह सकते हैं कि ये 3 संचालन हमारे न्यासी ही कर रहे हैं। मैं भी और अभिलाष पिल्लई जो न्यासी हैं, और फिर कीर्ति जो न्यासी। सत्र के बाद एक बहुत महत्वपूर्ण जो आयोजन आज का है, वो है नटरंग का ऑनलाइन पर उद्घाटन, और उसके लिए एक विशेष समय हम लोग करेंगे जो इस सत्र के बाद होगा, और उसमें क्या होना है और कौन उसको करने वाला है, ये आप तो अभी से क्यों बताएं, तभी बताएंगे। अभिलाष, अब वहीं से आप चाहें तो बोल सकते हैं, आप यहाँ से बोलने का।
I'll just introduce the speakers of today. Maya Krishna Rao, an actress who has been passionate about finding a new language of performance. She worked with several important directors, including Amar Alana, Anamika Hafsa, Anuradha Kapoor, Jules Wright, Ong Kang-sen on variety of plays. Maya has constantly been in search of a new medium for the theatre. A key moment in this process was her solo performance of Sadathasan Manto's Holdo in 1993. I have to just add a personal sentence here, because this is a production in which when we were young, that is myself, Royston Abel, and there were many other theatre workers who had also been part of this particular production, which had opened many windows in us. And this Holdo, where dance and theatre were fused to create a charged and emotive atmosphere. It was this production which led her to establish her new theatre group, Vismaya, in 1993. Maya has devised over 15 solo performances where she employs video technology combined with live music in the process of further developing a contemporary idiom for herself. These include The Job, A Deep Fried Jam, Lady Macbeth, Revisited, Quality Street, and Ravanama. She also pursues an interest in children's theatre and has recently contributed towards creating a new syllabus for children's theatre to be incorporated into the regular high school system, a collaborative project between National School of Drama and National Council for Educational Research and Training. In 2011, she was honored by the Sangeet Natak Academy Award for her contribution to acting. Maya currently runs a full-fledged course in applied theatre for Shiv Nagara University. Maya ma'am, welcome very much. to this session. Anjum Katyal has been involved with theatre publishing for decades as an editor, writer, translator and critic, a chief editor of Seagull Books, Kolkata from 1987 to 2006. She was responsible for their New Indian Playwright series, which featured post-independence Indian playwriting in English translation, as well as several theatre studies titles. She was editor of Seagull Theatre Quarterly, that is from 1994 to 2004, the only national theatre journal of its time, which focused particularly on the voices of practitioners. And this was one of the journals which has really inspired us when we were studying in National School of Drama, and later to that also. She is the author of Habib Tanveer towards an inclusive theatre. She has translated into English certain works of Habib Tanveer, Usha Ganguly, and stories by Maheshwata Devi and Meera Mukherjee. As editor of Art and the City, a web magazine on the contemporary art, she has commissioned and edited pieces on contemporary theatre in urban India. Her book on Badal Sarkar is forthcoming from the Sage in this year, or probably by the beginning of next year. Apart from theatre in particular, she has worked on publications on Indian arts and culture and been involved in organizing several exhibitions of contemporary art, as well as writing catalogues for exhibitions. She has a background in education and teacher training. A published poet, she also sings the blues and reviews and writes on theatre and the visual arts. Welcome Anjumji to this session. Anjana Rajan, trained in Bharatanatyam at Kalakshetra, Chennai, where she had the good fortune of coming into contact with the institute's legendary founder, Guru Rukmani Dev Arundile, and other iconic gurus. These experiences strengthened her faith in the power of the arts to heal and expand the personality and to enhance the efficacy of formal education. A parallel stream in her work is theatre, to which she was introduced by her father, late playwright director Lilith Mohan Taklayal. She is a trustee and volunteer teacher at Sadhana Sanskriti Pratishthan, Sahibabad, a cultural organization founded by him. Besides performing Bharatanatyam, she conducts dance and theatre workshops for varied age groups and directs plays and dance theatre productions under the aegis of Sadhana. As a member of the visiting faculty of the National School of Drama and Sri Ram Center, Anjana has worked with various batches of theatre students and introduced them to movement-based Bharatanatyam and to classical Indian views of the body and dramatic expression. Anjana has written on performing arts and artists with a focus on India's classical dance and music forms for over a decade. Her articles have appeared in a number of English language publications, including The Pioneer, The Statesman, and other newspapers. She is currently deputy editor with The Hindu in New Delhi. Welcome Anjana ji into this seminar session. Now, I will just introduce this session with a small writing which just I wanted to open this session, and then I think because the speakers here, they were trying to tell me that not to make it too formal, so they would like to have all those 15-20 minutes by all alone, and I have to shoot questions, which I will be trying very much. But to begin with, I'll just read a small thing which I think may open up this session. Critical vocabulary for acting practices. The post-atomic, post-revolutionary, post-colonial decades of the later half of 20th century generated a dizzying multiplicity of theatre languages and performative possibilities. In the age of quickly accumulating posts, we are less than ever post-performance. We have consistently borne witness to alterations in social proxemics, what bodies and objects mean in spatial relation by negotiating those proxemics across our screens or on our stages. Cultural traditions as well as spaces between cultures and their traditions have been displayed, contested, buttressed, hybridized and sometimes collapsed. So to have gender, race, ethnic, sexual politics being negotiated and renegotiated. While this kind of negotiation is arguably the stuff of theatre, as far back as we could hope to trace, certainly with late modernism, the pitch and fervor of exchange The tussle of myriad isms and the opening out and boundary shifting of theatrical methodologies and aesthetic practices have only increased. Transculturalism, multiculturalism, interculturalism, and not to mention feminism, critical race theory, post-structuralism, postmodernism have introduced a range of notions of how meaning is encoded and enacted on the body, between bodies, across words and images, gestures and poses, media and method, flesh, celluloid, tape, digitalia has increased with remarkable speed. It may be noticed that most of the performances in the last 2 decades not only highlight but also complicate the notions of the self, which is seen to be subjected to forces both from outside itself, such as social and environmental forces, and from within itself, the workings of the unconscious. In this sense, the performance anticipates and articulates the changing cultural conditions of the contemporary period, wherein the perception of the self is not autonomous, unified or stable, but rather an unfixed and fragmented product of various social and historical forces. Contemporary performers are thus challenging some of the core traditional values that have demarcated identity, creating spaces in which to imagine new hybrid identities, thus inviting the description of being postmodern. Performance is always performance for someone, some audience that recognizes and validates it as performance even when, as is occasionally the case, that audience is the self. Although conventional traditional theatre has regarded the other as a character in a dramatic action embodied in acting by an actor, modern performer art has generally not been centrally concerned with this dynamic to some extent. Here, which is also happening, contemporary performance artists make use of their own bodies, their own autobiographies, their own specific experiences in a culture or in the world made performative by their consciousness of them and the process of displaying them for audiences. In such performances, the individual body remains at the center. In this sense, most of these performances use little scenery, few props, and just enough costumes, sometimes even nudity, to fit the performance situations. It is not surprising that such performances have become not only highly visible, but also emblematic in a contemporary world that is highly self-conscious, reflexive, and obsessed with simulation and theatricalization in its social practices. Indeed, performance could arguably be the medium most articulate of speed, since live performance, unlike object art, passes in time and appears to vanish too quick, one might say, to leave itself behind. It is common to say that the theatre and the performance through which it is articulated is composed in temporal space, composed via repetition, but unable to outlast the instances of its utterance. When a live show or a run of production closes, the production supposedly disappears into the various documents which record it: film, photograph, videotape, interview, playbill, play text, prompt book, ticket stub, costume, prop, review, memoir. Yet the documents and archived materials of production, as well as schools of training in the styles of various luminaires, clearly show that the liveness in production and production values have definite resilience. Productions, direction styles, and acting methods cite each other across spaces, even reenact each other via direct reproduction from a prompt book or via quotation, or there are other ways. But what remains of that period are the production reviews, which actually captures, documentizes, and intellectualizes the period to which theatre production belongs to. It actually decodes the intellectual space between the audience and artist at that moment. In consonance with the vision of a good performance as an act of critical intervention in civil society, we envisage that a good performance would address the function of art practice in the public sphere today and the complexities involved in cultural production and dissemination. How can we initiate a critique of contemporary performance practices in terms of conceptual innovativeness as well as pragmatic feasibility? In short, a good critique may highlight the necessity for conceptual rigor and raises critical questions about how to frame the performance, keeping in mind the complex social process that produce cultural performances. Thank you very much. Now, we were thinking that we'll have 15 minutes and 15 minutes to 15 to 20 minutes of talk from each speakers, and then we'll try to have discussion between all of them, and then we'll try to open the session for the public. So to start with, I think we'll go with Maya Rao ji, and then with Anjum Khatayal ji, and then with Anjana Rajan ji. And I would like to just, for Maya ji, if you don't mind, I'll just start with a question as you told me, that one would like to know your approach into acting in last 2 decades. I'll just elaborate a little bit of that. Maybe it's a bit too much, then you can select what you want. Because have your training of Kathakali did come in use for your performance making? Why do you want yourself to present as yourself rather than conventional character playing? How did you move out from it? Why do you want to shift from illusion of theatre which has been dispensed with the director and the writer? Why do you want to devise your own scripts, design and construct the space around you? We can start from there, and is that all right?
But please do it to the
Yes, I will try.
Should I stand because performers are used to standing? There's a very short answer to Abhilash's very long and scholarly question. And when Abhilash asks a question, you know that it's coming from layers and layers and layers of his own experience. The quick and short answer to his question is, all of this was done not out of choice. I did not choose to become my own solo performer. I did not choose not to have a director in the rehearsal room. I did not choose to not to have a writer in the room. As in life, and life is full of accidents, some of them come and go unnoticed, and some of them come as they do accidentally, and they have a way of flipping themselves and staying on. And if you're ready to pluck the sign and say, oh, this was an accident that I need to take cognizance of, then you pluck that accident and you make it a part of your life. And that is something of what happened to me. Where Kathakali is concerned, I think everything that I am today as a person, a woman, a teacher, a performer, I'd like to even say today I'd like to call myself not an actor but maybe some kind of an interventionist. Ever since my last performance, which is called The Walk, I don't see for me the word acting has gone out. I'm sorry, it's gone out for me. It doesn't apply to me anymore. I know there is something called acting and there's actor training. I have forgotten what it is. I used to teach a long time ago in National School of Drama. I don't know what it means anymore because ever since I've left teaching of acting, I have only known words like intervention. You can call it a cultural intervention if you like, but that's where I am at now, and maybe I can elaborate on that a little later. But where Kathakali is concerned, I find, and that is probably the strengths of traditions, they are so solid that whatever phase of life you may be at, whether as a person, as an artist, professionally, they have a way of showing another side. They're like a prism from which all the colors of the rainbow can appear, and depending on which phase of life you're at, they will show that side of their prism at you and shine at you, and it's up to you to pick it up. If I were to share with you the few things that I have taken, that I have imbibed, I can't even say inspired, that I have imbibed both in the body and the soul and the mind and the heart. One of them is definitely the fact that we were never told about characters. They came much later. All that we ever knew was endless preparation. What Stanislavski called the actor prepares, we didn't even use the word actor, it was simply preparation. You came every day to class and you prepared. Your guru was never telling you get ready to play Krishna or Bhima or Arjuna or Damayanti or Nala. You just prepare. When called upon, you will be just pushed on stage and you will be given the verse, and you better just be ready to know everything there is to know about the character. And then suddenly the word character, which of course in Malayalam is called Vesham. Now Vesham has a very different resonance from the word character. To my mind, it's much larger. It's as large as the fully dressed up male character in Kathakali. So one is that we prepare. The body, the mind, the heart prepares. It doesn't play characters. To put it very in short form. Number two, you are the medium for bringing the whole world as you see it on stage. This you're told by the guru from day, well, maybe not day one. It's like he just said, it's not ये दूसरी बात तीसरी और चौथी या हजारवीं हो सकती है, लेकिन एक दूसरी बात कि you must create the world for the audience. And I think for me what has been completely inspiring is in that moment when you, as in Kathakali from day one, literally from day one, the fact that you have to learn to hold your eyes wide and pluck from it a flower. It's already in that territory that doesn't belong to only the stage. Everything about Kathakali includes the audience and includes that space beyond, a cosmos beyond. And so for an actor, she is always larger than herself, and she always forever includes the audience, even when she's practicing inside the rehearsal room, even when you're standing on stage and if you're only standing there and doing your steps, you still have to stand like this and focus out there. But all that your guru is making you do is only the footwork. It's only one little technical element of the form that's going to build on your body and leave its stamp. But always your attention is out there. So this, it's a kind of, I think, a philosophical way of looking at the stage, that it forever and ever always includes the world beyond, and that it does not consist only of me training inside myself and of myself and being, there's no room for self-obsession at all. Thirdly, I'd like to say there's something about our forms where the word is not, if you like, in a certain way does not have the kind of primacy that a lot of traditions in the rest of the world, particularly of the West, have. Of course, you may argue with me and say, in Kathakali we always start with a shloka, and there is a padam, and the singer will sing it. But for the performer, the words are simply written in a notebook. और हम बचपन में उसको हिंदी में लिखते थे. You can't write Malayalam in English, or Sanskrita is Malayalam in English. So I would write it in Hindi, and the moment you write it, the Guru says, put it away, I don't want to see it again. Because that's up to you. When you go home, you can learn up the padam. Now you just stand there and be ready. Now if I say the word mountain, ya pahad, I don't know, there may be so many ways of saying the word, but it is still consists of the pa, ha, ad, ha. Because that's the signal to all of you, because we share a language, that I am signifying mountain. But we were brought up, and this is what is the strength, I think, of our traditions, the word is not primary. There are other things that are primary. And as I was thinking, it's strange that whenever you please stop me when I need to stop. Every time somebody calls me and asks this very question, how has Kathakali inspired you? I am always amazed that it is something new that comes to me. That is how large our forms are. And it came home to me only because Abhilash asked such a question. He sent me some questions on email, that actually in a form like Kathakali, as against the word,
It's a tal. So we all know one universal tal is of the 8 beat. So we slap it as tei, ta, ti, ti. It's a 4 beat, and the 4 is multiplied into 8 and to 16 and so on. Now you can do that in complete vilambit, as they say. So if you're playing a Ravana, you've got a 14 beat cycle. He is such a big man, I think. He's so huge in his dimensions in that particular piece. He holds the stage for an hour and a half, and the singer doesn't sing. Ek loves nahi hai gayak ko gaane ke liye. It's all left to the actor. The chenda man or woman will beat the drums. There'll be the madalam, and the rest of it is left to the actor. There is what is known as an arta pragaram, which means again that the actor has written the words of what the gestures that he or she will use on stage. Now, look at this beauty. The character is Ravana. The moment, which I'm not going to get into in great delay, too much discussion, किस moment पे रावण आके अभी मंच पे है? What moment of the story is he at? What is his situationally? What is his moment? Where is he at? Is there a conflict in his mind? What are his circumstances? As they would say in modern theatre, what are his circumstances? Within all of that, 14 beats will keep repeating itself. It is up to the actor how long she wants to take to simply play out, not speak, play out the mudra of mountain. Now all of that, and if I had 14 beats, which is much more than 15 minutes, so if I were to have all those 14 beats to do the mountain, we are talking simultaneously of the creation of a moment of Ravana and the mountain. I am always amazed at Kathakali that does Ravana see the mountain? Or is the largeness of the mountain, does it reside in him? Has he been given 14 beats, not 4? Because only he can really experience the whole, the largeness, the dimension, oh, you come to challenge me, have you, Kailasha? And there may be a moment when he sees, maybe it has come to challenge me. Who are you? And by the time I take this part of the mudra, maybe it be you or me, or you or me, or you. And then finally and there could be just one moment of amazement. Oh my God, you are that guy. Now, how many little moments go into making up that word mountain? But for that moment, the word mountain belonged only to Rama. Yes.
It is that magic.
Yes, I know. I tend to get carried away. No.
The mic.
It was just that see for us, like when we were studying in here, and whatever the practice we were doing in theatre before meeting you, we were also having a kind of an because I am coming from Kerala, a kind of an intervention into Kathakali and other forms as part of the movement which was happening there, and we were taught these forms and then to apply it into a play. And accordingly, we had a different journey into learning the choreographic part of it and then getting into the playmaking mode. And when I saw you for the first time in Koldo on stage, that was the time that this stand was very different from what was happening at that time, as how the classical theatre.
You're using words, sorry I'm cutting in, you're using words like choreography, like Kathakali, it's like a form. Now I think...
That's what I'm just coming
Yeah.
into. So what is it? And for us, that stand was happening, but we got this whole motivation to start something was from your kind of work. But for you getting into this kind of intervention into the classical, from what was the motivation, or from where did you get this?
I see what I'm getting from Kathakali is all the time. If I go into a rehearsal space and if I think, अच्छा एक कुछ एक नया शुरू करना है, क्या है मुझे नहीं मालूम. But first, what plays in me is a beat. Maybe there's an idea. Maybe I saw a photograph in the newspapers. But what I got from Kathakali is that I won't go there and this won't start. कि अब क्या करें ये photograph के साथ? You know, an intellectual activity, which I'm saying is very, very important. Please don't misunderstand me. But for me, because I've come from Kathakali, it's always hug. So I sense a rhythm in that photograph. And it's giving me a hug. And I'm feeling something in my shoulder. That photograph is telling me something moves in my shoulder. And I have learnt now, because I have no director, to just stay with my shoulder and say, कि अब मुझे क्या करना? And wait for that shoulder to speak to me. And when it starts speaking to me, it's speaking to me from the inside and from the outside, because I can also sense the shoulder moving from the outside. And then a thought starts developing and a feeling starts developing, and then I don't know. And then the next may be a word, and it will be that, no, I'm not going to it. क्या करूँगी? So मैं नहीं जाती तो क्या करूँगी? बताओ क्या करूँगी? But the word then becomes a part of that composite energy car.
Yeah, that's where it is wonderful, because then how does you because I have always seen you that when we try with young actors sometimes, an exercise like this sometimes may get into indulgence.
But that's because we're not leading it.
Yeah.
I think a lot of you people, you're great directors, and we need people like you who are sitting out and getting it going and have the bigger picture. But I think the directors like you who are so perceptive, you need to also then engineer them with your body, because it is true, after all these years, we have not, I don't think so, correct me if I'm wrong, created a whole, जिसको कहते हैं रियाज, सरगम का रियाज होता है. एक मॉडर्न एक्टर के लिए एक ही रियाज नहीं है, अलग अलग किस्म के हो सकते हैं, लेकिन उसको एक बनाने की एक not just a कोशिश, but it needs to be laddered. So maybe like Kathakali has these steps. Now you may ask me steps के पीछे रखा क्या है, पता नहीं क्या क्या नहीं रखा है इसके पीछे. Because it is apart from getting my muscles ready to, I can think through my feet because my muscles are all prepared. But what it also does, it gives me a sense of discipline, if you like, a body discipline. My guru will go on making me do this till I'm falling over, I'm so tired, but I have to keep doing it. You people need to be able to generate that kind of physical practice in our young, I won't say actors, I'll say performers. Or get hold of someone who shares your way of thinking of making performance. What is that vision? And then to design such an actor preparation. For me, I have tried to decode all the years I was in NSD. All I was trying to do is, हम तो कभी ड्रामा स्कूल गए नहीं, हमारे पास सिर्फ कथकली है, उसको क्या मैं किसी तरह से डिकोड करके उसमें से मैं लेसन प्लान्स निकाल सकती हूँ क्या? And that's all I tried. You were the first guinea pigs. Very first batch.
Okay. No, but see, the thing is again, it is quite interesting. I would also like to know that how do you have, as one realizes that you are performing a kind of a self which is there inside you, but at the same time, how do you keep the margins of the social connect which is happening, and how do you relate, how do you evaluate your performance in terms of the space? One is that how do you connect with the space in which you are, what is making, and all those things which are, how much does it matter to you? And how much does it matter to you, the kind of relation in terms of
Audio, we can't hear.
how much does the social connect of the piece, how much does it matter in terms of the space and your performance, and that is a somatic way of functioning. There's a lot of body which is happening in your performance. So how does it all, and there is a self which is there, and how does it all comes into a place where we get most of the points what you are performing?
Well, there was a time when many students would come and say, "Madam, आपने किया क्या? आपको समझ में तो आया नहीं." That was there in 1990s, and they would just come and say that, and I would say, "बस हो गया, आप कुछ नहीं करोगे, कुछ तो बोलना पड़ेगा." 50 मिनट के लिए वहाँ बैठे रहे, कुछ तो महसूस किया होगा, कुछ तो बताओ, and then I would trigger and say, "Okay," and get whatever they experienced from the show. But all these, Abhilash always asks many questions in one, and they're all very big questions. I think when I'm making a performance, like I said, shuru mein, even when I'm in a rehearsal room and looking for that first, whatever that action is, I don't think I'm ever completely alone. And I think that comes from a kind of Kathakali training. I have a sense of एक ये circle, एक ये दूसरा circle. ये नहीं कि मैं चेहरों को देख रही हूँ, but there is an energy that is spiraling outside from that moment, because I have to charge that moment. If I don't charge that moment, I won't get inspired. It's like a chicken and egg situation. पहले खूब योगा करना है, अंदर से एक खालीपन और एक एनर्जाइज्डपन दोनों को महसूस करना है, फिर स्पेस बाहर का, फिर शायद वहाँ कोई ऑब्जेक्ट है. मेरे लिए ऑब्जेक्ट जो है एक को एक्टर बन जाता है, उसको हम वहाँ रखते हैं, और फिर जब हम उसके साथ या तो काम कर रहे हैं या नहीं कर रहे हैं या पास जाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, I think there is a social reality already there present in the rehearsal space, because when you work alone, you're always looking for tension. There's the tension with the object, there's the tension of the object and the world outside, and who am I here? Now when I say who am I, it's not Maya. When I think of acting, I only acted in productions done by Amal Alana or Raina or Anuradha Kapoor. I acted in them. When I come to my rehearsal room, I think I see myself as making performance. मतलब हम एक किस्म के engine हैं, वो engine को जरा चालू करना है, और फिर वो किसी तरह से बनाना शुरू करेगा. I don't think of myself as an actor, that I'm going to create emotions and a moment. Because if I start thinking like that, I'll be under pressure to actually create. And I have not promised myself कि हम create करेंगे. हमने सिर्फ अपने से ये कहा है कि कुछ होगा, आज देखते हैं. इंजन कुछ चालू होगा, आज वो बनाएगा क्या मालूम नहीं. That's all I can tell myself.
Yeah, but just in that engine, how much is how does the design aspect comes into? How do you take the decision of all other aspects of the product?
I think it varies.
Solo art.
Okay, in a show like The Job एक छोटी सी कहानी है बर्टोल्ट ब्रेख्ट की, और हमने पहला सोलो जो बनाया था वो खोल दो था. उसमें कुछ भी नहीं था, सिर्फ दुपट्टा. खोल दो के बाद मुझे लगा कि अब नया चैलेंज, ऐसी तो हम दूसरा शो नहीं बनाएंगे, कुछ तो एक चैलेंज होना चाहिए. खोल दो में एक लफ्ज हमने बोला नहीं कभी, तो लगा कि दूसरे में एटलीस्ट व्हेन आई गो टू द रिहर्सल रूम मैं बोलती जाऊँ. You won't believe me and you think maybe I'm being very I don't know, superfluous, पर उन दिनों में मुझे अपनी आवाज एकदम मैं सुन नहीं पाती थी. If I spoke English, I found it very fake. ये अंग्रेजी में बर्टोल्ट ब्रेख्ट की कहा in the decades of the First World War, वो बहुत अजीब लगता था. ये कहाँ से आ रहे हैं ये लफ्ज, मेरे अंदर से तो नहीं आ रहे. तो आवाज मुझे किसी और की आवाज लगती थी. And I used to think, oh, shut up, Maya, don't talk anymore. But then I had to get used to my voice. And then I started making sounds when I in the middle of the words, just so that I felt it was coming from me. If I spoke Hindi, which of course I'm used to, I'm a South Indian who's been brought up in Delhi. लेकिन Hindi is not my first language, English is my first language. मलयालम भी है कहीं बीच में, वो भी टकरा रहा है दोनों के बीच. So there was all this problem with language, because language is cultural.
Okay, just last question to you. If you have to put all this into a language to be written. Can you just...
Yes, I want to be able to say, you know, when you talk about Natrang and all the playwrights who, we need a new era. We need, and it's already there in the world, we need the era of the performance text. जिसमें ये नहीं कि playwright के शब्द शुरुआत होगा क्रिएटिविटी का, वो शब्द देख के हम सोचने लगेंगे कि इसको इंटरप्रेट किया कैसे किया जाए, इसको एम्बॉडी कैसे किया जाए, इसको कॉस्ट्यूम और सेट पे किस तरह से इसको रिफ्लेक्ट करने दें हम. वर्ड विल नॉट डिसाइड. In fact, when I'm making performances, let me end with an image maybe. You know, for me in a particular show, Heads Are Meant for Walking Into, हम बहुत साल से, जैसे कि सबके साथ होता है, I've been carrying an image in my head of a tea glass, जो स्टेशन पे मिलता है ना, ऊपर से ऐसे 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 रिप्ड होता है, नीचे से पतली बहुत पतला होता जाता है और उसमें बबल्स होते हैं. आपको मालूम है ना जिस ग्लास की बात. You, in my childhood, you found it on every station. South, North, and my mother used to take me on that Grand Trunk Express to Kerala every year, twice a year. और वही क्लास, चाहे आप तमिलनाडु में हो, चाहे आप महाराष्ट्र में हो, वही क्लास. And it's suddenly I carry this for years कि उसी से हम पी रहे हैं कि कोई और पीता है, फिर कोई और पीता है. Worlds have been drunk from that glass and poured into that glass. And but the glass is the same. And so I brought that glass into the rehearsal room, hoping it will inspire me. And I put it into that, you know, tea carrier, जिसमें 3 और 3 6 का carrier होता है. And I got someone to rattle it, keep rattling it. Glasses अपने बीच में टकरा भी रहे हैं. Camera उसके पास ले गए. And looking at that image, सिर्फ एक लफ्ज और वो होता, मैं नहीं आती आज. But that मैं नहीं आती आज didn't come from here. It came from doing some action or looking out of a window or pulling a curtain out of the window and laying it here as a bed and say so ja, and just making like this, meaning sleep. मैं नहीं आती आज. So there was a whole text before the text. And when it is made the first time by whoever the performer is, I think it should be actually printed that way. We have to find that language so that when future generations think to do that same play, maybe the play is called मैं नहीं आती आज, then they will look at that original one and think how they want to interpret it. One last thing I'm going to say. My last performance that I've made is called The Walk. वो सिर्फ टेक्स्ट है और कुछ नहीं है, लेकिन उसको हमने बनाया था वो the tragic death of Jyoti Pandey on that awful night of December 16, 2012. I got a call on 30th December कि आप 31st को यहाँ JNU में आइए. मैंने कहा मेरे पास कोई शो नहीं है. नहीं आप कुछ करके लाइए. So I just downloaded a tune from, I never do this sort of thing, from YouTube, और मैंने उसको बजाया और फिर बस मैं अपने लैपटॉप पे ऐसे लफ्ज लिखती गई. Or I kept moving and then the first word that came to me was walk. And from there sprung a whole text which was about walk. What I want to say is, I don't think it's accidental that the word walk came to me, because for the 2 weeks before that, as you all very well know, जब भी आप टेलीविजन को चलाते थे, all you saw was children walking and they were running and they were saying, we want justice, we want, एक ही slogan उनका था, we want justice, we want justice. So I'm trying making a second point, which is that performance very often these days is not separate from event. There's an event happening out in the world, it triggers off a certain kind of performance, which triggers off a certain kind of text. And so when we produce texts in written form, we should somewhere write as a introduction, a prologue, what was the background in which this text got made, where the first word was walk. It has a certain history. Children were walking for 2 weeks. I think it's important for people to know the event that gave rise to a certain kind of cultural expression. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll have the view from Anjali.
Thank you very much, Maya, because you stopped at a point which is something that I was planning to start at myself, which is this whole question of how do you take something as complex, as nuanced, as intangible, as individually subjective, as temporal as a performance, and how do you somehow allow that to live again for somebody who may not have been there. We talk about writing about performance. Luckily, we now live in a world where writing is not the only way we have of very easily capturing something. Maybe we can move towards a discussion of how multimedia documentation can work. But the problematic is the problematic of a wholeness, of a ability to take something which is so multifaceted and somehow convey that experience. Keeping in mind all the markers that Maya brought up, which is the context, which is the background, which is the role the performer has played in creating that entire experience, because that's what it is, it's an experience, and which you are part of as the audience, as the person who will then take that experience further or write about it. Now we grappled with this, I come from a background of writing on theatre, trying to somehow do it in the form of books, whether we did our journal, whatever. We started talking about this whole concept of the performance text with a very real issue. I remember the discussion, which was when Rustom Bharucha was trying to write about Kanhai Lal's work, Pibet. I don't know how many of you have seen Pibet. It's a non-verbal piece. It's a very intimate piece. It's political. It's highly emotional. It comes out of a fable which is local to the area. And here was somebody going in from the outside who had to somehow create that experience for a book. Now, what was he to do? He said that he was trained in a certain kind of theatre writing. He said there's no script. Do I treat it like a film script? Do I give you angles? Do I give you perspectives? Do I do description of the actual unfurling of the movements? It's so based on movement. How this woman is slowly emerging from the floor and becoming something, and how am I going to express that? So these were very real questions of of how does one create what we decided in our heads, we called it the performance text. That term has been around and probably was not the first time it was used, but it was our way of trying to say that we're going beyond this concept of a play script, and we're now looking at something which is much more rounded and whole, and that is a performance text. So the decision was that you have to give it a lot of time, because you have to see it again and again and again. If you have the luxury of seeing that piece being performed from rehearsal, from reception, as ideas grow, you keep a personal diary, journal, you jot down your ideas, you track the changes that are taking place, you bring in the voice of the people who are creating it, talk to them, you see what kind of experience they have been through, what was the idea with which they began, what were the things they brought into it. You talk to the audience that's been there and you try and see it through their eyes and what they got out of it. So it becomes a much more complex, nuanced, layered and multifaceted. So it's a way of looking at the work. So it's not just this one person's voice that is saying, I am the critic and I am saying that this is what it is. It's an attempt to open up the whole experience so that many different kinds of was most of that inaudible?
No, only in last.
Inedible.
It was all right until the last.
Okay, so what I was basically trying to say was that the shift was from this central authoritative figure who comes there as the expert, as the critic, to write about this particular experience, and to see that you have to that you incorporate a lot of experiences and a lot of points of view and facets into writing about performance. It becomes much more helpful if there are photographs. So we also had a photographer who was there throughout the journey to take photographs of different points of the whole production. It becomes, of course, much more sort of nuanced and multifaceted if you have moving documentation, moving film, which is now very easy because you have these tiny handheld cameras and you can practically be all over the whole performance space instead of having to take your heavy, shoulder held videos, which is what was there in the 80s. So, in a sense, the ability to capture a performance and to be able to then pass it on, whether one does it as a combination of a written text, a visual text, a moving text, or audiovisual text, has become, it's become much easier now, I would say. As long as the understanding is there that this is what is primarily needed. Because here you're talking about a direct translation from an audiovisual medium, and that to an extremely temporal medium. We all know the cliche that you can never see the same production twice. We are not the same, the mood is not the same, the times are not the same, the artist is not the same, the text is not the same, the experience is not the same. So obviously performance is always going to have that element of being ineffable, because it's gone, it's there and it's gone. And the next time it happens, it's going to be different. But despite that, because we still wish to somehow be able to access something that has happened in the past, so that we can return to it, we can understand it, we can analyze it in some way. In spite of that, we need to find some language that does justice as far as possible to performance. Now, that was about the performance text, which you said that that's how it needs to be done. You gave a very interesting formula that you have different columns in which you write maybe the one word, and then alongside that is all a description of movement. So, but there could be other ways of approaching it. It could be like, one idea was to treat it like a film script, where you're sort of, giving multiple descriptions and you're backing it up with photographs. So that was one thing I wanted to talk about. The other point that Maya brought up, and before that Abhilash brought up, is that when we look at the way we have been able to write about performance over the last 20 or 30 years, say from the 80s, 90s, 2000s, nowadays. One of the biggest things that has changed is that, exactly as they were saying, that there is now a multiplicity of cross-communication between earlier set genres. We are seeing work where we're looking at it and we're thinking to ourselves, is this a work of installation art? Is this performance? Is this dance? Where exactly is this? Sometimes I'm not even seeing an actor, but somehow it's a work of theatre. So our tight sort of reassuring divisions or labels are all in a state of complete flux, which is a huge challenge, because when you have the safety of having your frameworks, you know exactly how to place what you are seeing. For example, earlier on, when most of us would go and see a proscenium play, which may be a family or social or even political situation, but which is being treated with a certain degree of social realism, where there is character, the building up of a character, there is a plot which will be resolved. We know that the actors have come there with a certain training on how to stand, how to move, how to present themselves, how to get into the subtext of the play, how to create a character that you can respond to on stage. So we know that these are the conventions, and we're able to say, are they doing it well or are they not doing it well? We're able to compare it to earlier enactments and say, you know, that person was able to create this character, this person. So there was a sort of a framework into which you could very neatly fit your assessments. So as somebody who was writing, it was a more maybe comfortable situation, because you were able to get your. It could be, I've talked to you about social realism. It could be street theatre. It could be looking at the kind of third theatre work that Badal Sarkar started off. You know, where you have the physicality of the actor doing different kinds of movements, and there you may have seen 5 or 6 different groups doing similar work. There you're able to have a comparison because you know what the norms are. You read the books, you've understood the theory, and you know that, okay, this is what you're supposed to be doing on stage, and then you're able to judge, is that how far or how unsuccessful has that been, or what's different about it, or what's new about it. So what I'm trying to say is that we moved away from these folk forms which have their coded rules. We moved away from the classical forms that have the old Natyashastra frameworks. You know, each one of us may have been experts in one, knowing exactly how to judge it. And or even the Badal Sarkar school, if you can call it that. The whole Stanislavskian and getting into the character. So those were the sort of the canons or the accepted modes. And now we are in a space where a person can almost do anything. You would walk into a space where somebody is just sitting on the floor and creating a sound, and something is happening on the wall behind that person, which is giving you a context for what you're seeing and hearing. And suddenly it's a story, and it's a narrative, or it's an experience, or you become part of it. You are expected to. So what I'm trying to say, the space has kind of been blown wide open, and yet we're expected to respond and to be able to write about this. So what I was trying to do was talk about, so what then remains as certain parameters. You see, we've been having a lot of discussion. I'm here for as part of the jury for Meta, which is the theatre festival, theatre awards, and we are seeing on one evening plays that are at two ends of the spectrum. I shouldn't call them plays, productions, performances. You know, they are so widely different in terms of everything. What the director is trying to achieve, what kind of style he is drawing on, what are the cultural references coming in here, what is the performative language being used. Everything is so different, and yet both completely opposite in every single parameter you can think of. Both are working. They are having an impact. They are being seen as successful. So we keep on discussing this, and we are saying, so what is it? You know, what can you then draw as something in common that gives you a framework? It's not enough to just say that it works for me. I know that a lot of people feel that, and these are, I'm not just talking about just casual people, but people who are trained in writing, they feel that it's enough for them to say that this works for me. Somehow it worked. Because I feel that every single person there is coming with a whole different history of plays that they have seen, that they can compare it with. So what works for me may not work for somebody else. I may say, well, I've seen that so many times before. For somebody else, it's very new and exciting. So amongst the kind of things that I was trying, this I want to discuss really, rather than just think, because I feel that this is something that we could all maybe talk about. Some of the things I was thinking of, that what do you then try to bring into your writing or your response to the piece? One was, I feel that it's important to understand intent. the creation of that piece, what was the intent behind it? If a person is wanting to create a piece that will be very, very coldly thought-provoking, that will evoke a sort of horror, keep you at a distance and make you think, then as a critic, am I right in saying, oh, it was not emotionally engaging? I mean, that is not, it was not meant to perhaps to be emotionally engaging. So some sort of an idea of what is the framework of intent within which the creator of the piece is working, I feel is an important thing to be conscious of. The other thing is the evidence of technique and skills training in all the elements that go into the performance on its own terms. It could be that this performer is using thangta very, very powerfully, or is using voice training very interestingly, or you can see that there's Kathak somewhere in the makeup of this artist, and maybe not doing it as a dance thing, but the movements are there and things are there. So some way of bringing in what you feel are the skills and the techniques, so that it's not just being said as a subjective thing, that oh yes, this was a very powerful piece, or it worked really well, right? Then I was thinking of this thing which we call thick description in anthropology. Thick description is just another way of saying as detailed, descriptive writing as one can do. So maybe, you know, you're beginning with the presets, the colors, the kind of mood that's being evoked, the kind of, you know, so it's descriptive writing as opposed to analytical or discursive writing, to try and capture some of the details of the piece. Then I was thinking that what is also very important, I feel, is to bring in comparison and context. Somewhere to locate, be able to locate what you're looking at vis-a-vis either the context in which it was created or the cultural context in which it was made. Now, for example, I'll tell you why I feel such a thing is important. You see a work made by a Manipuri director. Okay, the way the actor is performing in that work, a certain kind of pitching, a certain kind of delivery of text, okay, is maybe something that is actually a way of presenting it in Manipur. It may not be something you're used to seeing, or you may feel that it's too over the top or too strident, but you've seen or you're aware that this is a performative language that this particular person is drawing on. So somewhere, I think the comparisons and context is another important aspect. And I think finally we do end up with keeping all this in mind. Does the piece actually then, how does the piece, to what extent does the work actually achieve its overall aim? You know, to what, and where would you say are the areas where you feel that it hasn't? And this was just a kind of a very rough thing. I'm sure there are other things we could add to it. But given the kind of state of flux in which we are in terms of documenting and writing on performance, this was just some of the thoughts I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Now can we have your view also, Anjali, and then we can get into the specifics.
Between them, Mayaji and Anjanji have said so many pertinent things. As Abhilashji said, Kirtiji said, they didn't put it this way, I'm always stuck in the middle because I also perform but I also write. So, just as for me, I came from a Bharatanatyam background and theatre is something natural that I had at home, and I didn't see a difference in expression. I felt this is also an expression, and I learned the phrase very late that your body is your instrument. But this is the way that we were taught, that your body is your instrument. Similarly, when you're writing about these arts, you're trying to put the intangible in some kind of a tangible form, and that too is part of your expression, or it's your way of serving. Because one thing I can say is that our gurus always stressed on the idea of communication. You are communicating, and if you're putting something across, then whether I'm writing it down on paper, or whether I'm using my body to make a statement, or whether I'm using words to speak, they are all part of that same language or human communication. But when I have to write critically, then I have to look at the empirical aspects of the arts, and each person is so different. When Mayaji was speaking about how she embodies Kathakali, or how Kathakali embodies her, then I could completely vibe with it. But it's very different from how it would have happened with me. But I can understand it at a certain level, because that too has been my experience. I too have been touched that way. So every phrase, if we take each production as a phrase in that communication, every phrase is different. So every evaluation, it's very difficult to build a lexicon. If we are talking about building a vocabulary, we maybe should build a large lexicon, a pool from which we can then understand each other. If the Manipuri people are doing something in a different way, is it at all possible in a very vast country like India? And in my experience, in my observation of what was happening when I went to Madras in the late 70s, there was a very strict division. In the sense, the compartments were very sealed. This is dance, those people are doing theatre, those people are doing music. Music and dance are related. Music is the seed of dance. These were the things that we were told, so we imbibed. But those were still early years of formulating these forms, and we learned to call them classical. At that time, people were not looking at the idea that we all accepted that the classical dances are very ancient, and we are all continuing an ancient tradition. But people were not at that time saying, but we broke away somewhere, we had a long period of forgetting. And these classical dances that we are now performing, they are a product of remembering, a collective remembering, and sometimes restructuring. So we were not saying that. Therefore, as dancers, as practitioners, we learn to use the vocabulary which we got from the old works, like Natyashastra and Abhinaya Darpanam particularly, also Dasharupakam. So we spoke about things like Natya. We said, what is Natya? We were told the difference between a solo performance and a group performance. We said Natya, according to the old tradition, was that it is Pujyam Purva Kathayutam. They are the sacred old stories from the Puranas, and these one. So we said, oh, this is dance drama. And then in dance movement, we have Nritta and we have Nritya. So you have Nritta, which is ornamental, you're creating shapes with your body, and you have Nritya, which is using your body to convey emotions, to convey sentences or anything. We learned these terms, and I think that people who were critiquing dance were using these terms very comfortably. But then, and they seem to apply. And then the dancers at some point started stepping out of the repertoire that was formatted for them. Now I'm talking more about the dance forms like Bharatanatyam, like Odissi and Kathak, Kuchipudi. They started stepping out of the formatted repertoire. They started doing thematic work. Maybe they took an abstract theme like energy or water, and it was a different sort of format. But the critics were looking at it still in terms of their technique, and as Anjumji said, these other parameters which we can look at, did they meet that aim that they started off with? It's a bit like judging a debate. You may not agree with the person, but did they carry the motion through more forcefully than the other party? It's a little bit like that. But then we had, because we took the term dance drama in terms of terminology, we took the term dance drama and we said this is a group production which is telling a story, and people are using characterization, whereas a solo performer is performing all the roles, is showing many things and many people, many ideas through one person without costume changes and without props also, and using the body. And we had a term for that also, maybe we call it Ekahari Abhinaya. But when dancers started also incorporating the spoken word, then the line between the dancers who said, no, I can't speak, don't give me lines, and the actor who says, but I can't dance, the lines began to blur. And then we started adopting the term dance theatre. And so now this has become very accepted. Only thing is that dance theatre in itself incorporates so many different styles and so many languages, because each person comes from a different background of movement. It need not be that it's a Bharatanatyam dancer who is incorporating those steps. It could be, there is so much in terms of Kudiyattam and Kathakali and the Manipuri and each part of India, and then there is so much folk theatre. So these all have come into the vast vocabulary in practice. Whether we can match that vast vocabulary in terms of documenting it in the written form is the big challenge. But I also feel that when we write, possibly in the English language papers or also perhaps in the other languages, we were approaching the idea of reviewing possibly from a Western angle, whereas we have the tradition of the commentary in India. We have the Alochana, the commentaries by so many scholars where they are speaking, they are taking something beyond. There's this text, and you're not saying it's good or bad or successful, but you are saying also this. Ye bhi hota hai, ye bhi hota hai. And then we have a society that views everything, because we have a society that is so bound to mythology in everyday life and so bound to ritual. So we have words from our old lexicon, which I am borrowing from Sanskrit. We have words like dhvani and rasa, which I think are very unique to this subcontinental way of viewing works. So when I see something on stage, it creates a resonance in my mind, and if it is a piece which is talking about a character from the Puranas, then I may be familiar with it because from my childhood I have heard those stories. It will create a resonance in my mind automatically, and I understand these things, but a different kind of audience might not understand. So what I'm saying is that these perhaps are the aspects that we need to build upon. Now I write for I've always written for English language newspapers, so it's a this is one of the challenges that we face, that there are concepts and there are words which we have in other languages, in the traditional languages of the arts, which we need to somehow translate or transfer to the contemporary audience, which may not be familiar with those. And these were otherwise Anjumji, what she said about descriptive. It has to be very descriptive, because otherwise you're writing for a readership that may have also seen the performance, and you're writing for a readership that has not seen but needs to know. So there are other aspects in our performing traditions, and some of these, again, as Mayaji showed, she spoke about speeds, tempo, and that is also a language that affects the expression. And then, of course, the music, the raga. And we have a tradition which looks at what is correct according to theory and what is evolving according to practice, which we are told is Shastra and Sampradaya. And possibly we need to look also into those aspects when we are evaluating. And the last point that I am always struggling with when I write, when we talk about these arts, is that we just, similarly as we cannot compartmentalize dance and theatre, all the other traditions have fed into these. The painting and the music and the sculpture and the poetry. There's so much of literature. So possibly we can find resonances in literature, because we are talking about writing on the arts. These are some of the thoughts.
Thank you. I would just like to start a question with you only. It is just that I was just hearing, and that in the classical dance, as you are coming from that background also, does the body become a subject, or does the body, it has more explorations in terms of technique and expressions of bhava, or what happens to the self in the performance?
What happens to the self? What happens to the self? Is the body a subject? I wouldn't say that. If I look at the way that we were trained in Kalakshetra back in those days, it was a time when you didn't question your gurus, so you just did as you were told. And therefore, I think you cannot consider your body a subject if you are approaching it that way. You are trying to, it's like kneading dough. You're just trying to get there all the time. And what was the other thing you said?
What happens to the self?
What happens to the self? It's an interesting, it's like, what is that, cathode ray, oscillate. You oscillate between thinking very much of yourself and also forgetting yourself. So you're trying to forget. At the same time, I think that you work so hard so that you will be conscious of each and every part of your body there, and then you can forget it. Similarly to how if you learn ABCD, but then you say, Abhilashji, could you come here for a minute? I will not say A, B, H, I, L, A, S, H. I can't say that, because by that time it will be over. So similarly, I just can't be thinking of all those points, but I had to at some point imbibe them in my body. So it is a process of learning and forgetting.
Thank you. I just have one question. It is just that I would really like to know how this also, like, all of you can respond. The kind of social media which is growing, and almost everybody is today writing on this. They all write, they document in terms of photographs, they put photographs, and there are many ways of expressions into it. And how would we look at writing, and that's kind of language flow which also happens, and there are many ways of putting. Yeah, there is a generation today who writes much more faster in terms of there are many things which they keep writing. Probably, I do remember this much of writing. I used to have a pen and notebook for writing in my college days and everything, but now it's all there and we keep writing. And how do you relate that with the kind of vocabulary which we are also looking for? Do we ever have to look into it also to develop certain things, or are they already open with the vocabulary? If they are quite used to it also in terms of which they are also getting used as a generation which is coming up?
Okay, I'm thinking about this as I try to respond. See, seems to be happening with a younger generation, and we always have to think of the younger generation because they are the future. What seems to be happening is a kind of a beyond borders kind of sensibility. They can pick up things from anywhere. It's so accessible, visually even on YouTube, and there's a right that any creative person has, I think, to take ideas and influences that connect personally. Of course, that should always be there. It should not just be gimmicks and all that. But I think the right is there to be able to take it and not only say that, no, this is not my tradition. I don't think I should be incorporating this. I don't think it works like that if you're truly a creative person. So the first thing is that it's like this world, truly a world wide web. You're getting your influences and ideas from all over. The other thing that I feel a little bit hesitant about, though I know that that's the trend, is a kind of a non-thinking immediacy. I mean, there is a efficacy, I think, there is a usefulness in an immediate response. Certainly, because a lot of things are happening in time and you can capture that immediacy of that white hot kind of instant response to something. But I think that has its place, but there has to be a more reflective way of commenting and responding as well. Because I think we're all getting sucked into this kind of immediate response. You see something and immediately you're tweeting or putting it up somewhere, and that's fine. I think that no one can stop all that. That's going to happen, and that's a way of responding to what they see and what's happening. But along with that, I think the value of a more considered response where you have time to think, you have time to go back. You can use the same medium, you can blog if you need to, but it could be done in a different mind space from that immediate knee-jerk kind of thing. Those are the two things about social media. And I mean, I always feel that if technology is there and if it's something that resonates with you and you can use it, then you should use it. So technology is just opening up. I mean, the excitement of having multimedia text where on a click you can actually see a bit of a performance of writers writing something, making a point, and then you're allowed to see it. That this is what I mean, whether it's footwork or whether it's the way the light plays on the face. There is an ability to bring in all that in multimedia, which is very exciting.
I just wanted to add one thing, that yes, there's a great explosion of writing on everything on the internet. But if we are talking about these things, giving your reaction as a person is fine. But there should be somewhere, there is a great need for precision in your articulation. You have to find the precise words. And we need to differentiate between those who are using the precise words and those who are giving a normal reaction. And all those are fine, but we just should be able, and we need not say one is better than the other, but we need to differentiate. And it's the same with all the arts. You find this. Some people are trained and some people are self-trained. And it's okay, everything goes. You might go to a teacher to learn drawing and you might learn it at home. And you won't say one is bad or one is good, but there are different degrees. And in writing, there seems to be somehow more and more acceptance of just everything. It makes things very cloudy, because just as I said that in dance training we learned that each and every finger movement has to be precise, then why is it not the case with language? It's so much of it is just flowing, and people most of the time are not giving weight to the meaning or to the contexts or the concepts of words. This is what I thought.
Well, all of this is true, and I do agree with it. I'm quite taken up by 2 or 3 things. One is because I also have a child at home and I watched her grow up. I was fascinated by the fact that she could have 4 different conversations simultaneously with 4 different groups of friends, which means 4 aspects of her person were coming out simultaneously with 4 different groups. I think that's great for self-identity. That in one moment, and it's not about being fake, these are all different sides of myself, and when I'm with that group, that side of myself will show up, and I will write and I will key in my words in that particular way. So while I see what you're saying about this just being this kind of unthinking flow, I think there is a kind of thinking also happening. And because of a certain kind of thinking, there's a certain kind of adoption of language. Iske saath aise, and there's a kind of rhythm. It's always very short. This kind of messaging, if we look at messaging each other, there's a da-da-da, da-da-da, and there are emoticons and there are words and there's a dot. It's a bit like a wordy performance going on. The bodies aren't standing up, but in those shapes and the people who are not into theatre are actually using theatre. The whole world, and I get fascinated by thinking the whole world is actually using theatre now without standing up. Even better, nobody can see me. मैं तो ऐसी करती जाऊँगी, कोई मुझे देख नहीं रहा. मैं ये भी करती हूँ, मैं कॉफी भी पीती हूँ. In fact, my daughter, when she's working and she's doing something deadly serious, which I still can't understand, she's designing something, she needs to keep doing this and then that makes her think about something about her design project. So this having to keep multi-sides of your brain and your sensibilities open, that is something that we guys don't know, and we might as well acknowledge that it is another way of being, this kind of multitasking. It's not just a task, it's the way I am. मैं task सिर्फ नहीं कर रही हूँ, मैं हूँ. I find that very energizing. Secondly, I'd like to say, that given 66A that just happened in the newspapers, when was it, this morning or yesterday? I think it's really very good. I think it's really good, the fact that I can be anonymous. Koi mujhe janta nahi, and it gives me all the freedom. Of course, tomorrow if I'm abusive and all that, koi hai mujhe dekhne wala, koi mujhe nikal dega, theek hai. I'm not talking about being abusive or not. But the fact that, and I'll take this example of that young boy who lay across the laps of 5 girls, and क्या उसने बोला मुझे पूरा याद नहीं, कि मैं एक मुसलमान हूँ और मैं 3-5 लड़कियों के गोद में मैं लेटा हुआ था, and the boy got thoroughly beaten up. And so many other instances. And the fact that today we have got rid of it, and the 66A is out, I think it's great. I think it's that much more freedom. And I'd like to look at it like that. I don't like to look at the exception. I'd rather look at the rule. And the rule is that it's given me more freedom. There will always be exceptions.
Thank you very much. Now we should go for like people who would like to ask some questions to the speakers.
One quick question. So, we are in an age where, it's called the Twitter age. You spoke about how you take concepts from one form to another, from one language to another. And so how do you do it in a Twitter age when we are so short of words? And so how do you, because I'm trying to be a playwright, so how do you take maybe some forms and some concepts from our traditions, from our shastras, and if I want to go out there and maybe perform in Manhattan or something, how do I take those concepts in a very abridged way from one form or one language to another?
Which language? Like in a traditional. You mean how do you take a traditional language and perform it abroad? I mean, I couldn't quite get what.
So I'm just trying to think independent of languages, independent of platform. I'm just trying to think from from one situation. So someone spoke about abstract and someone spoke about being descriptive. So how do you sort of take those from one situation? If you're in a situation, you don't take that from one form or one situation to another. Maybe it could be a different language, it could be a different culture, it could be a different platform. But just being economical with words, how do you do that?
How do you also be economical and be...
Right.
Well, I've seen plays in which a whole scene has been tweeting on a projection. Where the two protagonists are sitting at their two desks and they're actually conversing via tweets when it's being projected in instant time on a back projection. And that's how the scene is done. So, and obviously playwrights have begun to use this language, and it can be, I mean, there are ways, creative ways, you have to think of it for yourself, but I think Maya may be a good person to answer this.
I can't answer this. I don't think there are any formulas. You want to become a playwright tomorrow and there's no easy way. What I can say is, this suddenly came to me, if you took a little tukra from, let's say, a Twitter, a chat, any kind of social messaging, I think so,
Like I was saying about performance text, my own feeling is that if there's a conversation going on and this is a certain age group, somebody says, oh yeah, answer is huh, and the third one says, yeah, ooh. There are also some noises going on there. You as a playwright can pick up these combinations of sounds, of emoticons, of words. There's so much space, there's so much ... lying between, which only those 3 or 4 people who are part of that universe, they share a universe, so they can converse in this very economical way. लेकिन वो एक लफ्ज, एक sound, एक something like that they're using. You can pick up something like that, create the same piece of text, create 4 different versions, give it 4 different situations. One was in a cafeteria. It's like how we do Hamlet in a cafeteria, in a modern day cafeteria amongst young boys. So this is only an idea I can give you, that in social messaging on the net, there is such brevity that if you are a really imaginative playwright, by just simply giving a different context and different circumstance, or maybe a prop, you can give that same piece of text 4 different scenarios, which a group of actors can interpret in 4 different ways. I think that was a pretty good idea that came to me.
Yeah, so I was wanting to ask, I have recently been seeing some very interesting work being done with dance, by people who are, let's say, essentially initially trained as dancers, who have moved into a space where they are using what would be more accurately called movement, and they're using their body, and they could almost almost disguise what the initial training was, right? I saw this production made in Bangladesh, I don't know how many of you saw it, where Kathak was being used. Now, apparently, the director had started by saying these are all Kathak dancers, but we are not going to let them dance. And that was meant to be a sort of a strong statement through the work. And yet the dance somehow came through, somehow broke through. The response, I found this out because my whole initial response was that why was it so simple at that time? Why were there such few steps? Why wasn't there more of it? And then I was told, we were not supposed to dance. So what I'm asking you is that when you talk about having these very precise terms or references that link back to an earlier tradition like Rasa or Natya or Nritya, how would you adapt to what's happening with dance now in terms of talking about it or writing about it?
Yeah, this is quite the thing. I think this is one of those challenges that in some ways we have gone back to the concept of this holistic performance. We have put down the boundaries and the walls have come down, so we have dance and we have music and we have the spoken word. All these elements are there. But we cannot go back to that old vocabulary because the context is totally different. So we can't be looking at, and similarly we can't be looking at it in the way that we would look at a solo performance, where we would say, was there tatkar precise and was it well timed and all those things. But so we need to find a different vocabulary. I would say it's like finding, it's the essence really, you see. When we say that one of the important aspects of classical dance in India is that we have a large vocabulary of hand gestures, of hastas and mudras. And within the context of Bharatanatyam, within the context of each of these forms, these hastas have meanings and have uses. So sometimes when I am taking a dance class, I have to tell, there is a big difference between holding your hand this way and holding your hand this way. But I may relax that when I'm trying to create a new performance, or if I'm trying to convey this to theatre students. I always say the point is, it's your concept. What is the use of those hastas? And what is the use of those body postures? What is your body saying when you are in this posture? What do you think it says? And then does it apply to what you want to say? So therefore, if we see this being done in a theatrical performance, I might catch a glimpse of those and I can say, oh, it looks like that person was classically trained. But I won't be then, we can't evaluate based on that. And the other thing about, yes, sometimes it looks as if it's disguised. I think it's not so much disguised, but it's coming from inside, because finally the journeys are always within. And you find a sense of self, like this gentleman said, no, if I go to New York and how will I project this in the age of Twitter? But there are so many traditions that we have never seen from different parts of the world. And if it has an inner conviction, all they have to do is stand on stage and we see. Somehow it speaks to us in many different ways, so we take it. Similarly with these, if the dancers have imbibed the idea of their body saying something, then whatever they do on stage, you need not put it into any kind of word mudra, but the body is speaking. That's it.
Can I just add to that? I think it just came home to me. The word improvisation within a classical form, and the way we use improvisation, let's say in a freer space of a theatre rehearsal, it's very key. In both places there is improvisation. A Kathakali performer, a very ingenious Kathakali performer, can stand on stage, use the language of mudra, be in a certain situation, singer is not singing, and they just keep talking because they're well read in that's improvisation. When Abhilash sets an exercise to his actors, that is improvisation. Now, if we were to think of a situation where we tell a Kathak performer, you're in this room, at one end is a pitcher of water, and at the other end is dry land. And it's a metaphorical room, of course. And between that space and that space, all you have, I don't know, I was just looking at, when you go there, somehow this hand comes to life. And when you go to that hand, only this hand comes to life. And maybe a titita, or I don't know what, some kind comes to life there. You know, meaning that you take the word improvisation, you set it for this classical dancer, but you try and break out of her way of being in dance by putting her in a forum that is an more open theatre improvisatory forum. She will go in that dance movement way, because her mind has started opening up and is responding to this. She's been given water and dry land. And so I think I find that very exciting. There's a whole spectrum, all the way, if you like, from dance to movement, and when they will both merge and link and dance with each other in different quantums.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the time is now over. So thank you very much for all the three speakers. I'll just conclude with yeah, it is true that for the critical vocabulary, what we were looking for and the way what has come out is that yes, that one has to rethink about the writing formats of critical vocabulary. The kind of performance texts which are now developing has to be also looked into, because there are many ways how we can get into the critical vocabulary if you look into the kind of performance texts which are building up, which are coming up in terms of sound, photos, music, lights, and the way how audience reaction or how the audience is being documented. All those things, probably moving documentation also. In terms of other things which we have been discussing here is that intent behind the piece, probably, if that we are quite clear to capture the evidence of technique and training and the kind of description which in a way you have told about thick descriptions and comparison and the context in which it has been happening, and probably the overall aim of the work which we are witnessing, or we are being the spectator of it, are certain things which can also be kept into the critical vocabulary. Certain words can be borrowed also from the classical critical text, or probably classical text which has certain relevance into how the performance is coming up, and classical text also in terms of performances which are also inspired and taken energy from the classical sources. Probably we can find out there also there are words and expressions which we can come into, and in the end, even though we discussed about internet and the way how the social media is developing, and there is a lot of words which is being non-thinking in a way, it just comes out as spontaneous and stuff like that, but at the same time it has to be looked into, like how Mayaji was saying, that it has to look into, because there's a kind of a thinking process which is happening there. There's a kind of an process of words which are also jutting out there. So probably one has to re-look into all those medias also. That's how one would like to conclude with this session. Thank you very much, all of you, today.
Thank you very much. We have just heard a very interesting, meandering, perhaps disrupting, almost destroying the theme of the discussion. But there you are. You have heard some wonderful views about. On this occasion, हमने नटरंग का एक कारंत जी पर केंद्रित विशेषांक प्रकाशित किया है। ये हमारा पहला अंक है और सोचा कि ये अच्छा अवसर है जब उसका लोकार्पण करा दिया जाए। हमारे मित्र भारत रत्न भार्गव जो आजकल इतनी दाढ़ी बढ़ा चुके हैं कि न तो भारत दिखाई देता है न रत्न हो सकता है, दाढ़ी भार्गव की हो। भारत रत्न भार्गव से आग्रह है कि वो आए और इसका लोकार्पण कर दें। कारंत जी का जो चित्र है उसमें वो अभिनय कर रहे हैं। हा? में ये इसलिए भी करा लिया बीच में कि चाय में थोड़ी देर हो रही थी। सोचा कि आपको यहाँ से चाय के लिए आमंत्रित करने के पहले चाय आ तो जाए। अब सुनते हैं कि आ गई है, ऐसी अफवाह है। मुझे ठीक से पता नहीं है, तो चले चाय पिए।